The phone call came on a Tuesday. The fluorescent lights of the kitchen buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the pristine countertops. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. I was mid-sentence, recounting a particularly hilarious anecdote about our golden retriever, Cooper, to Mark when the phone rang. It was his cell. I glanced at the screen, expecting to see his name, but instead, a strange number. I almost ignored it, assuming it was a telemarketer, but something, a subtle prickle of unease I couldn't quite name, urged me to answer. "Hello?" I said, the usual lilt of my voice gone, replaced by a hesitant formality. "Ma'am, is this Mrs. Husband's last name?" The voice was clipped, formal, the kind used by people who deliver bad news. My stomach lurched. "Yes, this is she. Ma'am, this is Officer Davies with the city/town police department. We regret to inform you." His words hung in the air, a heavy weight pressing down on me. "That your husband, Mr. Mark, husband's last name, has passed away." The world tilted. The kitchen seemed to shrink, the colors blurring at the edges. Passed away. Dead. The words were foreign, impossible. My hand tightened on the phone, knuckles white. My mind scrambled, searching for meaning, a way to rewrite the sentence. Passed away. It just wasn't possible. We had plans. A trip to Italy in the fall, a new patio for the backyard, maybe even finally replacing that ancient, chipped coffee table. I don't understand, I managed, my voice a shaky whisper. "What happened?" The officer hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. "There was an accident, ma'am. A car accident. He was pronounced dead at the scene." He paused again, and the silence stretched, taut and unbearable. "We need you to come down to the station, ma'am. To make arrangements." "An accident?" I repeated, the word echoing in the sudden, terrifying quiet of the room. "Where? When?" He gave me the location, a place I didn't recognize. A place miles away, far from the familiar streets of our quiet suburban haven. He told me about the time, the circumstances, all the impersonal details of his death. And then, finally, the bombshell. The final piece of the puzzle that shattered everything. "Ma'am, we also need to inform you that your husband was en route to," he hesitated again, the words catching in his throat, and then, he released them. "To visit a woman." A woman. The room spun. The air thickened, becoming hard to breathe. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not just dead, but on his way to someone else. A mistress. The image, a cruel and vivid picture, bloomed in my mind. He was with someone else, in a different life, when his life ended. My life ended with his. I felt the blood drain from my face, my knees threatening to buckle. The officer's voice faded into a distant hum. The shock was a cold wave, sweeping over me, freezing every emotion except the icy tendrils of disbelief and a slow, insidious rage that began to coil in my stomach. I managed to stammer out a few more questions, my voice barely a thread, and then, I hung up. The phone clattered to the counter, the sound jarring in the oppressive silence. My legs gave way, and I sank to the floor, my back against the cold tile of the kitchen island. My head throbbed. My world had fractured. The carefully constructed facade of my life, the one I'd meticulously built over 10 years, had crumbled to dust. It wasn't just grief, it was a volcano about to erupt. I wanted to scream, to rage, to destroy something. I wanted to claw at my own face, to tear away the facade of normalcy that had been stripped bare. And then, the details. The police were careful, but it was clear what had happened. He'd been driving at a high speed, on a road he didn't usually use, in a part of town I never knew him to frequent. The car was a mess. Everything screamed of a secret life. A life I knew nothing about. A life that had ended, taking with it the man I loved, and the life we had built. The anger began to bubble. Like acid, eating away at everything. This wasn't just grief, it was pure, unadulterated fury. And I knew, right then, that I had to do something. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, so you don't miss out on any of my stories. I've got a doozy for you today, and trust me, you won't believe how it all played out. Prepare yourselves, because this is a wild ride. Let me paint you a picture. 10 years. 10 years of marriage. A beautiful house in the suburbs, 2 golden retrievers, a life I thought was perfect. My husband, Mark, he was a successful businessman, outwardly charming, a provider. He was also, as I'd soon discover, a liar and a cheat. We had a good life, or so I thought. Dinners, vacations, the whole 9 yards. I was, or so I thought, living the dream. Then the officer told me, and I understood what I'd been blind to. It was my mother who first noticed a change in Mark. He seems distracted, she'd said over Sunday lunch a few months before his death. She always knew. Mothers just knew. I'd brushed it off, chalked it up to work stress, but now I realized she was right. There were late nights at the office, unexplained weekend trips, a new cologne I didn't recognize. Little things, tiny cracks in the facade, that I hadn't wanted to see. I preferred the picture-perfect life. I had built it, and I wasn't about to let it crumble. I couldn't believe it. I remembered those late nights. He'd say he was working, deadlines, meetings, the usual business jargon. He had always been dedicated, but these instances became more and more frequent, the reasons more and more flimsy. I remember feeling a pang of loneliness, a deep yearning to connect, to share the simple moments that make up a life. But his eyes were averted, his attention elsewhere. I chalked it up to work, or perhaps, a midlife crisis. Now, I saw the lie. The weekend trips. He'd pack a duffel bag and explain he was going out of town for an industry event. Always, industry events. I remember the subtle shift in his demeanor before he left, the careful way he avoided my gaze, the way he rushed out the door. I remember the phantom smell of another perfume lingering on his clothes when he returned. He was always a creature of habit, but it was as if the habits were slowly changing. The new cologne. I'd always liked the scent he wore, the familiar fragrance that became intertwined with the memory of him. Then, there was a new fragrance. More masculine, more alluring. I caught a whiff of it one morning as he leaned in to kiss me goodbye. I didn't recognize it. I questioned him, but he waved it away, a careless brush of his hand. Just a new brand they're giving out at work, he'd said. Nothing to worry about. The funeral was a blur. The air was thick with the smell of lilies and the stifling weight of unspoken truths. The church was filled with people, faces I recognized, faces I didn't. Everyone offered condolences, their voices hushed, their eyes filled with a mixture of pity and curiosity. The well-meaning words, "He was such a good man, he will be missed," felt like a cruel mockery. And then there was her. The mistress. She was there, of course, standing at the edge of the crowd, her face a mask of carefully crafted grief. The fake tears, the sympathetic looks. She had the audacity to show up. She blended in easily with the others, a vision of elegance and composure. I wanted to scream, to tear down the lie that she was there, mourning my loss, when she was the one who had stolen a piece of him. I wanted to confront her, to rip off her mask and expose her for the woman she was, the heartless home wrecker who had helped destroy my life. But I couldn't. Not yet. I had to play the grieving widow, the heartbroken wife. The role felt so suffocating, a corset of forced smiles and choked back sobs. I had to play it, not for them, but for me. For the revenge that was slowly taking shape in my mind. I remember seeing her look at me, a calculated glance that seemed to say, "I understand." As though she understood my grief, as if she hadn't contributed to it. The eulogy was given by a close friend of Mark's. He spoke of Mark's successes, his generosity, his unwavering dedication. He painted a picture of a man who was kind, honest, and loved by all. The words felt like a knife twisting in my gut. It was the life he wanted people to see. The life he showed them. The real Mark, the deceitful, cheating, lying Mark, was my secret and his grave. After the ceremony, the condolences came. Hands reached out, clasped mine, and squeezed. Words of comfort were offered, phrases of loss. I nodded, muttered a thank you, and forced a smile. I was surrounded by people who knew him, who thought they knew him. People who had no idea the web of lies he'd spun, the double life he'd led. I wanted to scream the truth, to rip away the facade and reveal the man they'd never known. Then came the reading of the will. The lawyer, a pompous man with a receding hairline and a starched collar, cleared his throat and began. The office was hushed. The air was thick with anticipation. My heart pounded in my chest. I expected a hefty inheritance, the fruits of our shared years, the life insurance payout. I expected a life free from the financial worries that plagued so many of my friends. What I didn't expect was what I heard next. He left everything to me. Everything. The house, the cars, the investment portfolios, the whole damned shebang. It was as though he wanted to make sure I was taken care of. He made sure I was protected. A part of me felt a profound relief. I didn't have to worry about money, or the future. I could start again. But even in this moment of relief, the anger churned beneath the surface. There was a single clause, however, that I found both sickening and intriguing. A clause stating that if I were to remarry, his family would get half. Half. My mouth twisted at this. Even though I was getting all of it. It was a twisted game he was still playing from beyond the grave. As if the money would provide the final, lasting sting. He still had control. Even in death, he was still manipulating. I could almost hear his voice, "Don't mess this up, darling." I felt a wave of disgust, but also a flicker of satisfaction. He was gone, but I had the power now. The power to choose. The days after the funeral were a descent into a kind of controlled chaos. The house was filled with people, relatives I hadn't seen in years, well-meaning friends, all offering their support. The grief was overwhelming, a tidal wave that threatened to swallow me whole. But beneath the surface, the anger simmered. I was a volcano ready to erupt. I had to get it together, because, as I sat in the lawyer's office, I noticed something. A small, almost insignificant detail. A slightly smug look on the face of the mistress. She had been expectant. She probably thought she'd be getting a piece of the pie. She was there, during the will reading, her eyes glued to me. And I saw her shift, her smile waver, when the lawyer finished reading. That's when it hit me. I didn't just want to survive this, I wanted to win. My initial thought was to burn everything down. To sell it all, and then go live on an island somewhere. But that felt unsatisfying. Too easy. I wanted him to see the consequences of his actions. I wanted to make sure that the bitch he was sneaking around with would realize how badly she was played. It was then that the idea for revenge really clicked, a dark, twisted puzzle piece falling perfectly into place. The first step was to become the model of grief, of vulnerability. I knew I needed to build up her guard. The one she already had. I had to seem broken, helpless. I had to give her a sense of false security. I became the bereaved wife, the one struggling to come to terms with the sudden loss. The one who couldn't possibly manage the estate on her own. The role was easier than I thought. I already felt broken, adrift. I let the tears flow freely, allowing myself to wallow in the despair. I needed to sell the act. I spent weeks gathering evidence, uncovering the full extent of his betrayal. I found hotel receipts, emails, texts, all the sordid details. The lies, the secret meetings, the whispered phone calls. The woman's name was Jessica. She was younger, thinner, and apparently, a lot more exciting than me. The sheer audacity of the affair stunned me. The details of the meetings, the secret rendezvous in hotels, the whispered endearments, all the carefully crafted lies. I felt a sense of violation, as if my entire life had been invaded and defiled. I knew then that I needed to turn the tables, and make her regret her choices. I also found a hidden bank account. A very healthy one. The money from this account had been used to fund her lifestyle, the fancy dinners, the designer clothes, everything. The man I thought I knew was a complete fraud, right down to the foundation of our life together. I knew that I was entitled to all of his assets, but it was my next move that would have truly lasting consequences. The kind that would echo through Jessica's life forever. I became the model of grief, of helplessness, of everything she'd expect me to be. I had to seem like I was falling apart. That I was completely incapable of managing anything. The truth was, I had never been more capable. I just needed to be smart. And she, predictably, started reaching out. Calling, sending sympathy cards, even offering to help me with the estate. It was nauseating. I played along, feigning gratitude, allowing her to believe that I was entirely dependent on her. I let her believe I was drowning, and she was the only one who could throw me a lifeline. "Oh, Jessica," I'd sob into the phone, my voice choked with manufactured grief. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "Anything you need," she'd respond, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "I'm here for you." Now, I needed a plan. It had to be perfect. My goal wasn't just to get revenge, but to destroy everything the mistress cherished. I made contact with the local newspapers, providing them with sensitive information. I leaked the details of the affair to her friends, and family, and the people she worked with. This was the part one relished. The satisfaction I took in making her life crumble. The news was dynamite. She was branded as a homewrecker and a gold digger. Her life imploded. It was swift and brutal. I watched it happen, enjoying every moment. The look of horror on her face as the story broke, the way her friends suddenly stopped answering her calls. It was magnificent. I knew the rumors would spread. I imagined the whispers, the judgments, the scorn. The reality of her new life, built on a foundation of deception, was crumbling. The world she created, the life she enjoyed, was disappearing. Next, I took her beloved sports car. The one he bought her with the money from the hidden bank account. It was beautiful, a sleek, red convertible. I sold it, and donated the proceeds to a charity for abused women. A pointed jab, a final insult. The image of that car, a symbol of her affair, vanishing from the road, was exhilarating. It was a clear sign of my dominance. But I wasn't done. This was about more than just getting even. It was about claiming my life back. About ensuring that I, and not the woman he chose over me, would inherit the happiness and financial security we shared. I took the lawyer up on the real estate deal. I could sell everything, and I would, but first, I decided to start a company in the city. I hired the lawyer, but also a private investigator. I knew that I could never be sure how Mark and Jessica's relationship worked. He needed all the facts. My revenge plan also included financial manipulation, designed to make sure Jessica would be in debt to the point of no return. I went through Mark's business records, looking for anything that connected him to Jessica. And I found it. I started looking into the financial details, and I realized that her name was on a number of things that were going to be handed over. I made sure she wasn't left with anything. The company they owned together? I filed paperwork, sold off her shares, and made sure she couldn't touch the money. I emptied the hidden bank account, and moved the money to a different, safer account. I went to the bank and changed all of the account details. I ensured she couldn't touch any of the money. I created multiple new accounts. I made sure she would be financially ruined. The house? I decided not to sell it. It was my home, not hers. My space. And it would stay that way. The cars, the investments, everything. I liquidated it all. Every stock, every bond, every piece of real estate, even the dogs. I sold the dogs to a lovely family out in the country, giving them a life of adventure. And I moved. I left the house, the suburb, the life that felt like a prison. I took everything. Everything that was mine. The day I packed up my belongings, I walked through each room of the house one last time, a mixture of memories flooding my mind. I touched the walls, ran my fingers over the furniture, and gazed at the empty spaces where our lives had once existed. I remembered the good times, the laughter, the shared moments of joy. But the memories were tainted. As I pulled out of the driveway, leaving the place I thought was my dream life, a tear rolled down my cheek. Not of sadness, but of freedom. Finally, a sense of peace. The last piece of my plan? The wedding. I put an ad on the internet, offering to pay a handsome price for someone to marry me. I wanted to thumb my nose at Mark's family. To show them that I was not just a grieving widow, but a woman of action. The date, the venue, the entire experience was amazing. We didn't even sleep in the same bed. I found someone that I could trust, and we went to the lawyer's office together. We both benefited from the deal, and I made sure that my ex-husband's family was screwed out of their inheritance. I had gotten my freedom, and everything else, in one go. The search for someone to participate in my charade was surprisingly easy. I placed an ad online, specifying the requirements: a man, preferably single, willing to enter a temporary marriage arrangement for a financial reward. I was honest about my intentions. I needed to sever any ties with Mark's family, and this was the most effective way. I received dozens of responses. I interviewed several candidates, and chose the one who seemed the most reliable and discreet. The wedding itself was a carefully orchestrated performance. I chose a beautiful location, a venue far from our home. I invited people, but not a lot. I wasn't trying to trick anyone, just fulfill the legal requirements of the will. I walked down the aisle, a woman transformed. I had chosen a simple, elegant dress. I looked forward to being able to leave the past behind and build the future. The ceremony was brief, businesslike. No vows of love, no promises of forever. It was a transaction, a necessary step in my plan. When it was done, I signed the paperwork, the documents were sent. The aftermath? Jessica disappeared. I later heard she moved out of state, changed her name. She was a ghost. I never saw her again, and honestly, I didn't care. The thought of her shame and loneliness, brought a quiet satisfaction. I found it remarkable, the lack of closure that came with the end of the affair. It was as though she had ceased to exist. I didn't know her, in the end. She was an idea, a shadow. A figure in a drama. Mark's family? They were furious, of course. They tried to contest the will, but my lawyer was excellent. He handled everything. They ultimately got nothing. Just like they deserved. I felt a small sense of triumph as I heard of their attempts to challenge my inheritance, and their failure. They never really knew Mark, or the depths of his deception. I used the money to start my own business, a business that had always been my dream. A small bakery and cafe. I put everything into it, and it thrived. I spent my days surrounded by the sweet smell of baking bread, the warmth of the oven, the happy chatter of customers. I found myself again. Laughter returned. Life felt good. The whole process was difficult, the darkest time of my life, but it made me stronger. I learned a lot about myself, about the kind of person I wanted to be. I learned the importance of independence, of resilience, of not being afraid to walk away from a life that no longer served me. I learned the importance of trust. And it made me realize that my happiness depended on me. I think of Mark sometimes, but I no longer feel the sting of betrayal. I replaced it with something much stronger, the knowledge that I had won. That I had taken control of my life, and that I was finally free. I had a purpose. A life. A future. So, yeah, that's my story. I went from grieving widow to a woman who reclaimed her life and got revenge in the best way I could. I took back everything. Everything he thought was his. I was determined to find peace in the chaos. It wasn't easy, and it took time, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I got through it. I built a new life. People often ask me if I feel guilty. Do I feel bad about ruining Jessica's life? The answer is no. Mark made the choices that got him into this mess. The choices affected not just me, but his entire legacy. Jessica knew what she was doing. She got in the bed of a married man, and knew the consequences. It was her choice to participate. I gave her consequences. I'm not proud of all of it, but I am proud of the woman I became. I have come to terms with what happened. The pain has dulled. The anger has subsided. And in its place, a sense of peace. I felt no guilt, and no remorse. I saw her as collateral damage. Her pain was the cost of her choices. And now, I have the freedom to be whoever I want to be, and it's all because I fought for it. I started a new life with a new career. I found new friends and built new support groups. I found a sense of peace, even if it was a long time coming. All the anger and sadness faded as I realized that I could find joy in life again. I learned to find happiness from within. I built my own world. I learned how to be me. My advice? If you find yourself in a similar situation, don't wallow. Don't let anyone else dictate your fate. Trust your gut. Take control of your life. And don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. Revenge isn't always the best answer, but sometimes, it's the only one. And sometimes, the best revenge is a life well lived. A life full of joy, purpose, and happiness. Don't let anyone else define your future. It was a brutal, heart-wrenching experience. I lost my husband, my best friend, my lover, the father of my children. It's been years since it happened, and the pain still lingers, but in my heart, I know that I did what I had to do. I chose to embrace life with everything I have. I feel I am more confident, powerful, and free than I ever thought I would be. I didn't want to be a victim. I wanted to be the victor. I now know who I am. The story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. I hope this story has helped some of you to find peace. I found that being kind and true to myself was more important than anything else. I found the people I could trust and leaned on them. I learned who my true friends were and let go of those who didn't bring me joy. I feel like I can go on with life now that I have embraced my new self. Now I'm thriving more than ever. And that's the most satisfying revenge of all. So, what do you guys think? Would you have done the same? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever gotten revenge on someone? What happened? Share your own stories. And if you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.